6 months into a relationship isn't the ideal time to welcome a new addition to the family, but it wasn't like we'd actually planned it. CJ and I had to go down to the animal shelter to renew the licensing on the two dogs that I'd had for several years, and like all shelters, there was a cat room.
We'd looked at possibly adopting a cat when I'd first moved in and decided that we didn't want to deal with the additional responsibility of it. We'd also looked at a few cats at pet stores and hadn't really found that one cat that we just had to have, so we'd long since put the idea to rest.
There was a bit of a wait when we got to the shelter, so I suggested that we pop into the cat room just to look around.
She specifically said, "We're just going to look, we're not taking anything home with us." And I was in full agreement. Every last cage in the cat room was occupied. We started at one end of the room and went through cage by cage, row by row, looking at all of the cats.
I moved through the room a lot faster than CJ did, content to just look at them and only occasionally stopping to admire a particularly interesting looking one here and there. But he wanted to stop and give each cat a personal greeting. I've always been more of a dog person.
I wasn't really feeling the pull to take any of the cats home, but I did feel sorry for all of them. They all seemed like they were craving love and affection, and I couldn't just bring myself to walk by without giving them a little scratch under the chin through the bars. I was about halfway through the room when I heard the gasp.
She was lying on the shelf at the back of her cage, not pacing the front and rubbing on the bars like the rest of the cats, and that casual aloofness immediately appealed to me. But it was her eyes that stole my breath. Big, gentle, bright green eyes peering lazily at me from a glossy coat of jet black medium length hair. She looked at me for a bit and then slowly climbed off the shelf, casually stretched, and moved forward as if saying, "Well, if you're going to stare at me like that, then I suppose I'll let you pet me."
She called for me to come look, but before I could even get there, she was already getting a staff member to take the cat out of her cage. By the time I rounded the corner, the cat was nestled comfortably in Lindsay's arms and purring so loudly I could hear it from the end of the row. I knew I was going to have to be the responsible one and prevent us from taking this cat home.
He started out casually petting her, and I knew that he was gearing up to talk me out of it, but I hadn't really decided I was going to advocate for adoption. I had questions, so I handed the cat off to CJ while I left the cat room to make inquiries.
She says she wasn't advocating for adoption, but I knew that if she was making inquiries, that she was considering it as more than a casual visit. I couldn't deny that the cat was beautiful, and when we talked about getting a cat, we had agreed that we both had a soft spot for black cats in particular.
When I returned to the cat room 5 minutes later, I knew that we were taking her home as soon as I saw him. His eyes were closed and she was rubbing cheeks with him. They both looked like they were lost in bliss. Moreover, I had nothing but good news from my inquiries. She was already fixed, comfortable around dogs. Her previous owner said she'd been trained to stay off counters and tables, and even her name was perfect, Pandora.
We couldn't sign the paperwork fast enough. It was spontaneous, but we both felt the same instant and comfortable connection with her that we'd felt with each other, like she was destined to be a part of our lives. And she settled in just as easily with us as well. The night Drogo was born, Pandora was right there with the rest of us, providing moral support for Jazz and cheering her on in her own easygoing way.
We both knew it was just meant to be.